You're listening to Were You Still Talking? All right. Thanks for coming back. This is Joel Albrecht, and in the studio today I have Callie Kardas. I said it right this time?
Yeah.
And she's been on the podcast before. She is a very active member of the community, and she just got a new job, which I'm going to ask her about. A very different kind of company than she worked at before, so I'm going to ask her about that. And before we came on, we were talking about, what did you ask me?
I said, do people call? He said, I hope I get a phone call while we record. And I asked, do people still call people?
And one or two people still call me. It's I get lots of calls on the home phone. You know, we still have a home phone.
You still have a home phone?
Yeah, we have a home phone for, I'll just say relatives.
Oh.
Okay, elderly. And
they don't know it's a cell phone when they call you.
Well, they don't. Yeah, I need to start programming people to use a cell phone. But it was, I still like the phone call because a text conversation can take a day. You know what I mean? Hey, when are you going to be on the podcast? 3 hours later. Oh, I could be on sometime. A day later. Great. Sorry I missed your text. Why don't you come on Thursday?
I don't understand why people are like that, though, because I'm not that way.
You're not that way. You're on top of things.
And I will say, when I'm in person, a lot of times when people do that, like, we should get together sometime, like, routine, I, like, whip out my phone and I go, okay, here's my calendar when you want to do it.
See, that's great. That's great.
And half the time they're like, oh,
I wasn't serious. But they don't say it that way, but that's what they mean, right?
I see it in their eyes. They don't admit it.
Oops.
But I see the face fall just slightly. Not that hanging out with me is so terrible.
I like that. No, hanging out with you is great.
I think it's all right.
That's why you're back on the podcast.
I know. I'm so excited. I've double guest.
It's awesome. This is 24th episode. So 10 episodes ago, my first sort of official guest. I did have guests before then. We were just goofing around trying to figure out what a podcast was. And I had me as a guest, I think, on my third show. So
I'd like to do that sometime. Interview myself.
Interview yourself. Yeah, it's not great. So, like, if you're just new to the podcast, you don't have to listen to them in order. No. Start with 4. Start with episode 4. And then binge from 4 on.
I think I need to re-listen to it just to see if I'm the same person.
Well, I don't think you are.
Because it's been a year. It's been a year for me, Joel.
If you listen to... I can't believe it's been a year.
It's
not been... Oh, you mean it's been a year. It's not been a year since you've been on the podcast.
Well, it must have...
It's been about 6.5 months.
Okay. I couldn't remember
because I know when I started. I started in April.
I couldn't remember which job I was working when I came last time. Because you had said it's very different from
I think
my
you were
old
still
job.
working at your old job.
Which was a year ago.
Yeah, I think.
I quit in January, so it's been...
Oh, then you weren't.
It's been a year.
Because it wasn't, you weren't there anymore.
Okay.
You were looking, you were trying to figure out what you were going to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So where are you working now?
I am the communications manager at Mackenzie River Trust, which is a land trust organization. And what that means, because most people don't know.
No, most people don't know.
I did not.
I happen to know because a long-time donors, my parents donated to them. I mean,
awesome.
They've been around forever. Yeah. So keep going.
I didn't know what it was, but basically what we do is we're a nonprofit real estate company. We buy land and protect it from being developed. And that also includes working with private landowners who want to protect their land. And we work with them to put contracts on the land that legally prevent it from being developed, even in the event that the landowner passes on or sells the property. The easement is still upheld.
And that's fantastic. Yeah, you want to try and make those kind of easements or those kind of ideas of protecting the land in perpetuity, I think it's called.
Perpetuity.
Perpetuity.
We use that word quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's, those things can fall apart in another 50 years, but you can try. It's a fantastic thing.
So far, land trusts have won every legal challenge to them.
Yeah, and that's fantastic.
As long as, these days it's hard to have a ton of faith that the rule of law will be upheld, but
it's not just these days.
But I like to think that
we made an agreement as a nation to give some people land 200 years ago, as long as grass grew and the sky was
Right.
blue or some. So
and we may not be
we
protected.
sometimes don't follow through.
We may not be protected against eminent domain. That's really the only really large threat to us
Right.
is if the federal government comes to us and says, no, we need it.
Yeah, that we're just a really bizarre thing about the federal government.
Among many things.
Among many things, but that's a strange thing. Is that yes, you own when you buy a house and you buy the land, and for one thing, you don't own what's above you you own what's above you for a little ways, and you don't own what's under you. You only own a couple feet under you, and then if there's something there that somebody wants, well, they can have it.
Yep.
Whatever it takes to get it, no matter how deadly it is, trying to get that thing. Anyhow, yeah. So congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And what do you do for them?
I do communications. So I used to be a marketing manager.
Yeah.
And then when you go to work for a nonprofit, they call it communications.
Okay, so it's really
It's a softer,
it's
a more approachable, more nonprofit friendly.
So it's the marketing
job
of
title.
nonprofit.
Yeah, I think it is.
They still have to market.
I essentially do the same thing. I run all of the social media. I manage the website. I oversee any sort of branded projects, marketing materials, brochures, posters. I help promote our events. I'm working on internal communication things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's all really great work. And the best part about it is that I often get to be outdoors and on the land.
Oh, right.
Recording projects or events that we're having, or just taking photographs to share with our audience. And it's a wonderful organization that's got a great reputation and a really engaged online following, which I haven't had in a while. So it's very exciting for me as a communicator to be putting content out again and have a really, really high rate of engagement of people liking and commenting and sharing, and it's very rewarding work. It makes me feel very connected to nature. And the other really exciting thing about being there at this time is that we're in a really powerful mindset shift as an industry. The conservation industry has a history of being very white and very benefiting of a system that oppresses people of color, and we're starting to acknowledge that we're occupying land that was stolen, and we are asking ourselves really hard questions of how do we reconcile that
That's
we're
great.
occupying stolen land?
Mm-hmm.
How do we include more people of color? How do we include younger people? How do we include people of different abilities in our work? The outdoors has just been a very narrow scope demographic. And when you think about like any REI ad that's ever been put out, the people tend to be thin, 30s, fit, white, ponytails. And so, I think it's a really exciting time to come on board when they're really grappling with these hard questions of like, first acknowledging that that's the case, and then secondly, trying to figure out how do we adapt? How do we become more inclusive? How do we make our work more equitable? And it's really exciting.
That is exciting. That's great. And I'm just totally assuming here, but it's a guess that a lot of your donors are probably not thin white kids in their 30s.
No, they're thin white old people. mostly women.
Mostly women. Uh-huh.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising because our leadership has largely been male, and almost all of our landowners that we work with are white and male and older. So yeah, our demographic is definitely 65 plus white. NPR listeners, Patagonia wearers.
Right. Right.
Which is, it all fits together. I mean, we all have these sort of, I think, preconceived notions of like who the outdoors is for. But if you're also talking about land ownership, that is also who owns most of the land.
Who owns most? And it is interesting that who spends time in the outdoors is very much a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And if you watch a lot of comedians, you'll kind of get that. I mean, if you see a comedian joking about how silly camping is, it's generally not a young white person.
Right.
It's generally someone from a different culture. And so I haven't really thought about that before. And of course, the image of a hunter is generally a white guy in a pickup. So
right.
It's not
with a beer can.
With a beer can and
and
sorry Joe Rogan, but that's not
sorry Joe. And of course it wasn't something I had thought about before because I never had to. And it's living in Oregon, it's we're 85% white, and so we just don't have the exposure, I think, to a lot of the things that people of color really struggle with. And I think that's Oregon's struggle is that, it's like, because we're really liberal people and Eugene especially is like peace and love and let's include everybody, but they don't really, they do it in a way that doesn't really acknowledge the systemic oppression that people of color are faced with. And so trying to learn about that and also like as a white woman, try to talk about it in a way that's not patronizing. It's like, it's a big challenge, but it's also really important to put myself in that uncomfortable position because any level of discomfort I have around it is trivial.
Right.
So I'm trying to learn how to talk about white privilege in a way that still hopefully makes space for marginalized people.
It is always difficult to talk about white privilege as a white privilegee.
Right.
Because we are a member of the white privileged class.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
it's not like we're wealthy, but compared to a lot of people, we are.
Yeah.
We're doing okay. So it is interesting. And, that point you made about Oregon being 85% Caucasian, that's a big one. Because Oregon does want to be really inclusive. And I know there's a lot of different organizations and companies in Oregon that are like that. The difficulty is there's not as many people to include, especially in Eugene. I mean, Portland has a little more diversity.
And
Eugene does not have a lot of diversity. So it's tricky.
Yeah, it's very easy to bring those people on board and for them to feel tokenized. Because they're the only brown person in a room full of white people. And everybody's patting him on the back, but we're not necessarily doing the hard work of saying, does this person have a voice? Do they feel comfortable speaking up? Or are they intimidated and feeling singled out? Even with good intentions, things like that could happen. So, yeah, I feel grateful to be in the thick of it and to be confronted with those big questions because also part of recognizing my privilege is that up until this point, I really haven't had to have those conversations with myself. And I want to be a good ally and I want to share the great work that we're doing with everybody. And I want everybody to benefit from conservation work.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about things like climate change, that also is very closely linked to equity, because
Oh my gosh, yes.
people of color will be disproportionately affected by the changes that we see in our climate, and they're already disproportionately affected by the toxicity that we put into the environment of different chemicals and things. And I always kind of thought if people could just go outside and be in nature, they'd be, they would have that same sense of like peace that I experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also been hearing things where there's like a lot of cultural implications to going outside. We recently had a young man from Guatemala City come and talk to us. He works for Beyond Toxics. And he talked to us about the equity work that he's doing with them and with the NAACP. And it's his job to basically evaluate local environmental policies and determine whether they're equitable and make recommendations to local governments on how they can adjust their policies.
Well, that sounds like a pretty small job. Jeez.
It was great. We invited him because he wrote an op-ed in the paper, and we were like, we totally want to talk about this stuff. And he works right across the hall from us. And so we were like, would you come do like a brown bag lunch discussion with us? And to me, he had a lot of great information about it. But to me, the most revealing thing to me was this person whose job it is to evaluate environmental quality for people told us he hates going outside and he hates camping.
Wow.
And he said, I grew up in this really urban environment.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of places in the world, the wilderness is dangerous.
Right.
Because there are other people who would do marginalized people harm out in there. And there's also conservation agencies specifically in Guatemala that have defrauded people who live there, who have taken the land in the name of saving it from the power company and then selling the land back to the said power company that, was displacing people in the first place. So it was just, I don't feel like I'm speaking as intelligently as I could about it.
No, I completely understand.
In other countries, conservation has in the past been somewhat nefarious in terms of taking land from indigenous people that is currently occupied and selling it to natural resource companies that will exploit it. So, there's a lot of trust issues there.
Yes.
I was at a conference last month in Raleigh, and there was a man from Chicago speaking there. And he had said that African Americans in Chicago are a lot of times afraid of going out into, there's these open woods outside of Chicago that's like public land, and this organization's trying to get more people of color to come out. But the previous generation, remembers that place as somewhere lynchings happened.
Oh yeah.
And they told their kids, don't go there. You'll get hurt.
Right.
And so there's there are very real, those are just two examples of some very real cultural fears around the outdoors that I think white people have just never realized because we've never felt that way. We've never been under threat.
Well, even people who love camping and which I find more in my generation than in younger generations, it seems like, although campgrounds are full anytime you go there, but
yeah, they keep getting fuller.
Mm-hmm. But I talk to a lot of people who, it's kind of a culture of fear of the outdoors, even in our culture, where in most places in America, the outdoors are extremely safe. There's not things that are going to bite you and kill you. There's, there's very beautiful places to go that are set aside for you because of our natural parks and have beautiful trails and all these things. You can car camp, but you can barely even take all of the luxury with you is what I'm trying to say. And there's still a culture here even of people who are afraid to go. It's like they're afraid of the outdoors, because of movies partly, and because of different things that prey on our fear. And it's like an urban environment is far more dangerous in America than an outdoor environment. It's interesting how even here, where there's the vast majority of places in America that you go outside are extremely safe, and people are still afraid of it. Yeah. There's still that culture of, oh my gosh, outside. I mean, apart from I don't want to be uncomfortable. That's a whole different thing, which is to me just kind of sad, because
there are a lot of people like that too.
There are
who
a lot
just
of
like,
I
just need a bathroom. Like,
yes, wow. or you can go on and on. I don't want to get rained. I don't want to get cold. I mean, right. All kinds of different things. It's like don't you want to breathe? I mean, Eugene's pretty clean, but if I go to the Redwoods, there is so much more oxygen there.
Yeah,
even this farm outside of Eugene, it's just like when you're outside.
It's not as nice. Eugene's not as clean as it likes to think it is. I'll say that.
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, there are a lot of environmental toxins in our air.
Oh, I spoke to a kid who was doing a paper on the Willamette River, and he was talking about the cleanup efforts of the Willamette River and the history of it.
Yeah. And
it's gone through like 4 or 5 different changes between don't even swim in it to, okay, now it's clean enough to drink. Wow. And this has happened several times in the last like 50 years, because anytime that regulations get lifted, which is why things are so scary right now with the EPA, then everyone says, well, we'll just dump then.
Yeah.
We'll just dump, because there's lots of things along the Willamette River that have, poison they can put in there if they're allowed to. So even, that's a river we think is pristine, but not always.
No.
Not always. Yeah.
And it's, I studied sustainability in business school, and that was a recurring theme in my studies, in most of the papers I wrote. Yeah, but the industrial complex that we have right now the only thing that stops them from polluting is government regulation.
Which is interesting, yes, because there's so much distrust for government. Boy, we're talking a lot of politics on this show, which I never talk about. But there's so much distrust for government. It's the nature of your work. But it's the only thing keeping us that's kept us alive this long. I mean, a lot of us. But then you have things like when rivers are completely polluted, and what am I thinking of? Not Detroit, but the city that the water basically turned brown.
Oh, in Flint.
Flint, Michigan. And they're still just like saying, oh, well.
Yeah, they're still drinking
water. It's bad. Sorry, it's dirty. In a country where we have the resources to fix that. We completely have the resources to fix it, and we're just like, I don't know. It's weird. It's bizarre. Seen any good movies lately? Oh no! It's great that you have that.
I know that got really heavy, but
but that's good.
These are the things
that's what podcasts are for.
I'm grappling with every day now, and it's been remarkable, but also exhausting, because it's a lot of emotional labor I'm adding to my plate on a daily basis of trying to figure out what's going on with our environment, and like, is what we're doing enough? Like, I mean, it's not enough. It's never enough.
Not enough right now.
But then it's like, how do we?
But
how do we talk about climate change as a regional conservation organization, where we know, like, even if we were to protect every open space in Lane County, it wouldn't necessarily save us.
It's true, and I grapple with that on a personal level, like with the things you can do as an individual. Well, I won't buy this because it's garbage, or I'll recycle that. Wait a minute, I can't recycle that. I live in Eugene. No, I can't.
The system.
It's hard. It needs to be a bigger deal.
In a place where we don't really have much choice.
It feels that way to me too.
We have less disposable income,
control.
We don't. We don't.
have a lot of control
Even most
as
of our
individuals.
recycling ends up someplace
Yeah.
awful. That, yeah.
Or just in actually the vast majority of recycling, I've just discovered this in the last couple of years, is warehoused because there's nowhere
Right.
that's
It's just-
recycling it.
yeah.
There's too much of it. We just make, especially plastics. I mean, aluminum gets used. Now Eugene is doing the green recycling, which I think is awesome. But yeah, the vast majority of stuff just sits. And I was gonna, there was something I was gonna talk about before that, but oh well.
Sorry.
That's okay. That
Movies,
is okay. Oh, meditation. Have you tried meditation? It's really helpful when you're taking on all that stuff you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
it's because it is really hard to have that. I mean, I know kind of the space you're in. You get exposed to a lot more than the average person when you're actually working on it on a day-to-day basis.
Environmental grief
it's a
is
lot.
a thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's something we talk
absolutely.
about at work. Where
Oh, that's
it's,
good.
We're having conversations of like, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of our mental health? And, when we can't shut it off because it's our
Right.
work. And, I had that luxury before and I'm learning how to reconcile it now. And I will say I have not been successful at my attempts in meditation, but I do things that are meditative. Like I really love to lap swim. That is just sort of just quietly being absorbed in the water and just thinking about what my body is doing. Yoga will do it for me too.
Well, and those are forms of meditation. I mean,
Right.
sitting down and crossing your legs and levitating. I mean, we've all done that. But it's,
Right.
I mean, I've had points in my life where my mind was too busy to meditate, so I would do exactly what you're talking about. I would just walk and not look at anything else. Just walk or do lap swimming. Those, when you're clearing your mind like that and you're just thinking about swimming or you're just thinking about something else you're doing, that's still a form of meditation. It's a way to
I think it
to
accomplishes
clean your mind a little bit. Yeah.
the same idea is to just just clean out your mind. A lot of it for me is just like my brain is usually going 100 miles an hour. I'm thinking about 4 or 5 different things. I'm thinking about my chores at home. I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat for lunch. I'm thinking about my partner. I'm managing a bunch of interpersonal things. I've got theater things on my plate all the time. And so for me to just be able to give myself a quiet space for mental output without any additional input is, essential.
It is essential. It's hugely important for everyone's health. It's as much as, I mean, if you're exercising, that is, like I say, a type of meditation, but taking those mental breaks is, it'll make it'll make you able to do all those things without completely losing it.
Right. Right.
I'm only mentioning this because I've been doing more of it. So it can, it's very helpful. Very helpful. I like to encourage other people to do that. And, swimming is it's a similar kind of thing. So, you're only doing 5 things right now, it sounds like.
I'm on a little break right now, except that I'm a little break from theater right now.
Oh, I thought you were doing lighting.
I finished it.
Oh, you finished that. I was
this week.
Because when you responded
lighting.
so fast to do the podcast, I was like, what? How's that possible?
You caught me at the most magical time.
That's great.
Tuesday, I took on the job of lighting designer for the first time. A woman named Carol Dennis is directing an original play that was written by local playwright Rachel Carnes. And it's a really wonderful project that is a multicultural holiday play. And it's based on true stories of people in the community from different cultural perspectives. So we have we have a Muslim character, we have a Spanish-speaking Cuban character, we have a Jewish character, And we've got an atheist, we have a Chinese immigrant, and they're all stuck at the airport together.
Oh, interesting.
In a blizzard.
Uh-huh.
And Rachel's writing's so great and brilliant. I mean, she's an amazing person. Do you know her?
I don't.
You
I don't
should
think
have
I
her
do.
on the podcast.
Okay.
Her name's Rachel Carnes. And she's had immense success. Her and I were in the same playwriting class 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she's had immense success as a playwright. She's had dozens of her short plays be produced in London and Korea
Wow.
and New York and California. And she has 2 plays opening this weekend in Eugene. I know your podcast won't be posted on time, but she's got Bun Fight happening with at Oregon Contemporary Theater, and then this holiday play at the Very Little Theater.
Well, this will be out by Saturday.
So Carol, so it's running right now. Go see it. Go see them both.
Yeah, that's great.
So Carol put out a call looking for lighting designers, and they said, you'll have a mentor. And I thought, that's a job I haven't done yet. I'll try it. I want to learn more about lighting, and I said yes to it without considering my immense fear of heights and being on ladders. So
that's a tough one.
That was a major.
That is a tough one.
Major
it's
hurdle.
Very hard to light.
The first try was a total failure. I said to my husband, like, could you come with me and just make sure I don't die? And he said, well, actually, you should probably just let me do it. And I'm like, that's great. Even better. And I got all excited, and we went down there, and we got the big ladder, and we put it up, and he gets up halfway up the ladder, and he goes, nope, I can't do it.
Oh, no.
I'm too scared.
Oh, no.
So I thought,
I've been up those ladders. You can't think about it.
No, and of course, ours is 100 years old, and it's wood, and it's very heavy, but I will say I'm very proud of myself because I got through it and I did it. And Tuesday was the last time we were making final adjustments, and I was just up and down, and it really wasn't a big deal. So
that's fantastic.
It was a face your fears kind of moment to be brave, and they're really happy with the lighting, and I'm really excited, and I got to learn how to program the light board and put all the cues in.
That's fun.
It was fun. Yeah. It was fun. It was stressful though, because I wanted to do a good job, and this play has been a big challenge to put together because it is a new play, and because we're inviting new demographics of actors into the theater. Also a space that is very dominated by white people. There's several actors in the play.
Another cultural thing, I think.
Another very cultural thing. Community theater is super white.
It is. Yes.
But Carol Dennis and Stanley Coleman started the Minority Voices Theater Project, which is working very hard to bring marginalized voices to the stage. And this is the first production that she's doing that's part of the VLT's regular season, but very much has that spirit of the Minority Voices Project. But part of that means also bringing in actors who have never acted before. So she's doing a lot of coaching.
That's very brave.
It is.
That's very brave.
Watching rehearsals, you can see who the experienced actors are. You can see the experienced actors sort of slowly, like, quietly squirm in their seats, trying not to get frustrated. and Carol has just been so patient and brilliant, but we lost an actor.
Oh, no. Oh. Where is it? Where's the play? Where is this happening?
You'll never guess who's in this show, by the way, speaking of that. Sorry, audience.
Audience.
Insider.
This is an insider laughing here.
Yes. No, but it's actually, we're laughing, but the circumstances of the actor leaving they're very sad.
Oh no.
She had a stroke. So.
Okay, I guess that's pretty.
Which is not funny.
It's not funny, and it's a very good reason to leave a play.
It's a legitimate excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
they had to
terrible.
actually rewrite the character because it was the Cuban character.
No.
And we couldn't find someone else in that age group that could do it, especially 4 weeks before the show opens. So we found a wonderful young Spanish-speaking woman who is has a lot of talent. I hadn't met her before, but she's very good. And but she came on 4 weeks before opening, and the script had to be rewritten as a tia instead of grandma abuela. So, but they they pulled it together, and it's great.
I have to adjust the mic. I think it's falling.
Oh, it did. It fell down. Yeah. So that
now we'll
show,
see if I edit that or not.
At Winter's Edge, it's called.
That's what we needed.
Yes.
The name of the show.
Yes, it's called At Winter's Edge. It's playing at the Very Little Theater, December 6th through the 15th, I think.
Oh, yeah. So this will be on plenty of time to promote it.
Great.
Yes. And then everyone in the show should share the podcast because you talk about the show.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's great. To me, this show, I really wanted to work on it. My whole point of this very long story was that I really wanted to work on it in whatever capacity I could. So when Carol put out the call, I said, yeah, I'll do lights because I just really wanted to be involved. I wanted to attach myself to that project because it really, to me, represents what community theater should be, which is
great.
New and inclusive and welcoming to new actors and welcoming to people who don't know a lot about theater and representative of the community. And I think that's how it's going to survive. And, live theater across the board is suffering from technology. And,
right.
Ticket sales are down. Yeah. And so the question is, how do we reignite those connections that made live theater really special? The people who have been doing it for a long time understand it and want to keep doing it. But for me, the real magic of community theater is bringing new people in and watching them discover the special connection that you get from performing live. And so I think it's really great, and I really hope people go see it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think because I hear people put down theater in general, and it's shocking to me because as much as I love going to movies, there's nothing like live theater. I mean, it's there's nothing like it. It's a whole different experience. It's more like you're right there with the actors, and
it's interesting. It's all on you, and it's all about that moment. And I filmed my first short film this year over the summer, and we have a wonderful budding film community here in Eugene. And I thought it was very interesting that there wasn't a lot of overlap. There weren't a lot of theater people doing movies. I don't know why that is. I think it's just different friend groups kind of forming. But they've recently become very active on Facebook and recruiting people and recruiting more actors. And
yes.
So I did a film project. I got cast in a small film for a YouTube series called Scene in Eugene, which hasn't launched yet, but...
Oh, it hasn't. Okay. I keep seeing all the stuff about it.
He's promoting it a lot.
Yeah.
And he's filmed 4 or 5 episodes, but it's getting bottlenecked in editing. And
that happens.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it's going to go up there. He's got several episodes in the can, and he's just trying to be strategic about, when to kind of release all of them. And, but after I did it, I said, I don't think I'll do another film.
That's interesting.
I did not get the same satisfaction from it that I do from being in a live rehearsal. Because when you're filming a movie, as soon as you deliver a line that doesn't work, you stop the whole thing and do it again.
Yeah.
And to me, that just really kills the adrenaline for me.
It's interesting. I've done more film now than I have theater at this point. I wouldn't call it film, video.
Fair.
On camera work. I can't really call
on
it.
Camera.
I'm not on camera stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it is complete, like there's no satisfaction at all because some of it has been so fast. You go in and say a few lines, go away. But other stuff I really like because there's stuff that you cannot do on stage that you can do on a camera. There, you can use expression, you can use emotion that you can't use on stage. You can use much more real emotions. People won't see it. Won't see it and won't hear it. And won't hear it. I mean, as you get better and better as an actor, better than I am, you can speak in a stage voice and still portray all the emotion. It's still there. But when you don't have to do that, when you're not forced to have that stage presence, it's different. It's a different experience.
Very different.
It's also difficult to do it. How can I put this? I don't want to put down any of the production that's going on in Eugene.
No.
But it really depends. On stage, you work with a director, producer, writer. You work with them through rehearsal. Then you go on stage and it's yours. That part is yours. End of story. With film, it's not like that at all. You hopefully work with the producers and writers and directors on set. Sometimes you don't. You're only working with the director, but you have to put a ton of trust in the production to get it right. So it really matters. It's really exciting when someone does get it right. And when you see something you had no idea you were going to see, because that's another thing about film is, theater is really an actor's medium.
Yeah.
Film is a director's medium. So if you get the right it's a director and a whole bunch of collaboration. I mean, when you go on a bigger scale and they're spending $100 million on a movie, there's like 1,000+ people working on that movie. So every single one of those people have to do their job. I can't imagine being the actor in that situation. You don't know what's going on. You know the script,
right? But
you don't know what you're going to see when you're done. So it's very different, very different.
Yeah, and there's something to me. I think my friends that are enjoying film, they like it because it's like you get to do it until it's right, and you get to do it until like it all comes together, and then you get to see yourself later. Right. And it's this, like you say, and that word perpetuity comes up again. It's like, it's there, there forever.
Which is good and bad.
And you're, well, it just depends on how you feel about your performance,
exactly.
I suppose.
That's what I mean.
But, to me, what I was really missing was that audience feedback.
Right.
And for me, like, I almost enjoy being in an audience as much as I enjoy being on stage. There's something about the collective energy of a room. Yeah. Watching a live show, watching people take risks, watching people experience the emotional reaction in the moment. Is that, to me, is so powerful. And then to not have it while I'm being filmed. Well, it feels flat to me. It doesn't, it feels more hollow.
It's interesting. It's a different way of acting because in the kind of productions we're talking about, you don't really get the time to go where you need to go as an actor. If you're in a longer production, which I've done longer things, that's the joy of it. Yeah. Is you get time to do something you can't do in a play. Yeah. You get time to explore a character in a way that's impossible on stage. And so it's different. I mean, I completely understand people who prefer one over the other. Sometimes I want to say, well, film's more about ego, but I've done enough plays that I know that's not true.
Right. There's, I mean,
a little of that in all of us.
I don't think you can get up in front of people and perform without some ego.
It's pretty difficult.
I
It's funny because I meet so many actors, including myself, that are really shy in a way.
Yeah.
It's like
a lot of them are introverted.
A lot of them are introverted. And I've even spoken to a lot of actors who have stage fright, which I don't understand how they do it. Because if I had stage fright, I would never. That's one thing I've been very lucky about, is I have no fear of going on stage in front of other people. Like that doesn't.
Yeah, I don't
really
either. I don't get stage fright. I don't get nervous before a performance. I have been nervous at auditions, but I've learned to let a lot of it go. Yeah,
I get really nervous. But that just gives me energy to do it. I mean, I don't get stage fright's different. It's where you're having like almost a panic attack about going on stage. It's a little more severe.
Yeah.
If I'm not a little bit nervous, same with film. If I don't have a little bit of nervous energy, I know it's not going to go well.
Yeah, that's
it's not
fair.
going to come out quite right.
Yeah, and I don't mean it that I never have like nerves or anticipation or just, I get flustered sometimes. You want it to go well. So, and it's, I just finished an acting class at Oregon Contemporary Theater with Inga Wilson, who's a brilliant actor and one of the few equity actors in Eugene. And she, she's been to a million auditions, and the class was focused on auditioning. And she basically said, like, we had a lot of conversations about like when the stakes are, the higher the stakes are for you, the more likely you are to mess it up.
That's true.
And so you have to learn. It's almost like you almost have to like go through the rejection yourself before you show up to the audition. You have to be prepared to not get the part.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I think you have to be very, much into just doing audition. I learned so much when I audition for whatever.
Me too.
I learned, because I always realize this after the audition. Oh, that is acting. I mean, when you go to audition, you get to act. So it's fun.
It is fun. And it's a lot for me being like, a more full-figured person in my 30s. Not a lot of parts in the theater canon for someone my age and body type and gender. Like, it's either like very young or matriarchal type characters.
Yeah, see, I have the same problem.
Women.
I have the same problem.
Yeah.
I'm a white male past middle age.
You're not past middle age.
I'm a little past middle age. There's less and less parts until I get older. Honestly, until I look old.
Theater doesn't love middle-aged people.
Doesn't love this particular age that I am.
30 to 50 is like
tricky.
It's slim pickings.
Right.
Yeah, which is actually really why I started directing. One, so I could find shows for the forgotten demographic of actors. Because really, our talent pool is mostly that demographic too, which is like challenging.
It's very challenging.
It's challenging to cast a lot of the shows that we want to do.
Right.
But it's like we're not thinking about it right. We're just not. We need to start picking shows that are more reflective of who comes out to play. Mm-hmm.
And there used to be. It used to be when there was an older part in theater, they would just make the person up.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you don't see that anymore. Yeah, don't do that anymore.
It's like I want to their age
group. Which is surprising to me. I mean, I'm almost always cast outside my age group.
But think about too, like in the movies. I think about the movie Charade a lot because Cary Grant is like the handsome lead in that show, and he's like 20.
Like 50? No.
He's like 20 years older than Audrey Hepburn.
Oh yeah, and this is still true.
And it still happens.
It's still true.
Yeah.
This has finally stopped happening with Kevin Costner, but there was a long period where Kevin Costner,
who's that?
Exactly. Who the heck is that? Through his 40s and 50s, he was playing the same part as he did in his 30s.
Yes.
Same guy, same play. And his female lead could not be that. She had to be 29 to 35. She had to look 29. And I always found that, I always kind of shook my head going, really? I mean, why? But that's a movie. That's movies. That's a different thing.
I think part of it is culturally men. It's about who we find attractive. Younger women are considered more attractive, but older men are considered more attractive, I think, than younger men in a lot of cases. More mature.
Yeah, it's a whole. I think it's all a marketing thing.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is, but it's like
Oh, because now I see it. Now
but
I'm seeing it.
I just think about I don't know. There's just a lot of young women with older men still.
Mm-hmm.
I just got done. We were watching Star Trek earlier, and
good example.
I said something about how Jean-Luc Picard is the most woke man of the 90s. And he goes, yeah, but Patrick Stewart married a 20-year-old. And I was like, she's 40. And he's 79.
God.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine now. It's well, it's interesting because now I'm seeing the same thing with the female leads. There's a lot of famous actresses who still get parts, like Nicole Kidman and people of that ilk, who are often cast.
I think Nicole Kidman's a vampire, though.
She probably is. And now she's being cast with a 20-year younger guy. Have you noticed that?
I haven't.
What
has she been in lately?
Big Little Lies is an example.
Yeah,
her husband's easy 20 years young. I mean, brilliant show. Brilliant all around.
There has been
and
a
her
shift,
husband
I
is
think.
a genius actor. I mean, he's really
But it's
good.
also...
And he is a vampire.
Yeah. For reals.
Well, he was in True Blood, so...
Oh, right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Long circle there. Oh, I did want to say, though, I've said this before on the show, the best advice I've ever gotten for auditioning, it's true in movies and plays, is they're looking for you. You know this as a director. Mm-hmm. They need to cast that part. If you go in with that idea, it really helps. If you go in with the idea, they need me. They're looking for someone to do this part. I'm probably that someone. It's helpful. It's helpful. Because they don't want they want to, I've heard this from other directors, maybe not with you, but they want to cast you. They want to be done. They want to get they want to get it over with.
I don't necessarily feel like I want to get it over with, but for me, my audition philosophy is both when I am auditioning and when I'm on the casting side, I want to see who can make choices.
Mm-hmm.
That for me, that's always my number one criteria. Who can I work with? Who's going to be flexible? Who's going to, one, make their own choices that are both bold and memorable. But then when I give them something else to do, can they make that adjustment? Right.
Of course.
And so I don't think I am. As a director, I don't think I am looking for the person who's very self-assured. I'm looking for somebody who is a vessel, who can give me back.
But isn't that still someone who's very self-assured? And I didn't really mean it. I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean going in there thinking you're, the shiznit.
To me, that's what you said.
Oh,
it was this whole
I think that's
you're looking for me. You need me. I'm like, I don't need you.
I meant more they need an actor. I meant more they need an actor to fill that part.
Yeah.
And as an actor, if, in order to get rid of some of those nerves and be confident, the director is looking for someone. They're not just there to, to criticize you.
They're that's true. 100%.
To help.
We want everyone.
Yeah.
I think I can speak universally for directors that we want everyone to be good.
Right.
We want everyone to succeed. We want, we want to have options for who we can put in a role. Mm-hmm. But we also, I guess I would say, though, is that I would rather work with someone who's really hungry and I can see that than someone who thinks they have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's both of those. You get both of those kinds of people.
Right.
At auditions where you can tell it's this is the route I'm going and that's what this character is. There's no curiosity or imagination behind it. They're doing it either exactly like how they saw someone else do it, or they're just reading words on a page.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's kind of a different thing than what I was talking about.
Okay,
I mean, when you give them something, you want them to give it back to you in a way that says, cast me, right?
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're
getting to this.
We're aligning. Yeah.
But it is good to hear. It's always good to hear the other side of casting, and you have a very unique perspective having done both. I've had several people on the podcast who've done acting, producing, directing, writing, and that's a lot, but it is helpful. Yeah, that keeps slipping down. Very good. That's it. We're adjusting mics again in case I don't edit this. Yeah, that'll be fine.
My
you sound
microphone
great.
keeps falling
You sound
down.
great.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I've been writing more.
Oh, good.
I joined a writers group.
Writing seems incredibly hard to me. It's something I haven't tackled. This is actually what I'm doing here, the podcast. This is my version of writing. So
I like it.
This way I don't have to write it down. I still get ideas out. I hear other people's ideas, but I don't have to write it out until I try to describe the show.
Yeah, I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Writing has always been very hard for me, but it's been something I've really romanticized and really wanted to do ever since I was really little.
Oh, that's good.
I wrote my first play when I was in 7th grade.
Wow.
And I wrote it because I was mad at the drama teacher. I thought, they're not considering who's in class. They're just picking some random middle schooler play that has no real reward as a 7th grade actor. I felt part of it was because, so the big thing was when you're in 7th grade drama, everybody gets a part. You do a whole class play. And I got really upset because there was a part that I wanted, and I was, without ego, 100% the most capable performer in the room. Because I'd been doing it since I was 5, and I was...
Wow.
I'm a thinker, and I took it seriously, and most kids were just in there for an easy, walk.
Right.
And she cast somebody who looked the part but couldn't act in the part that I wanted, and I was really angry about that.
No.
I was really angry, and so that was my response was I'm going to just write my own stuff and do my own plays.
She went all Hollywood.
She did.
Hollywood used to be more that way. I'm actually seeing that. It seems to me anyway, because I've been watching movies a while, that the level of acting has really gone up in the last 30 years or so. I mean, there's always been great actors, but it seems like you have to be good now to get in. That I don't see as many terrible actors that just look good.
I don't know.
I'm kind of using the Avengers movies as an example.
But I also feel like all those
really
people,
good.
They are good, but they're all mailing it in.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Okay, well, I haven't seen. I will admit that I gave up on the Marvel movies quite a few years ago.
Yeah, some of those movies, I haven't seen them all. I definitely haven't seen them all. But I've seen a couple of the most recent ones.
My last
one. Yeah, that was probably a mailed in. But
even Robert Downey Jr. mailing it in is still
good. Darn good.
Still entertaining.
Exactly. And the people around him have to do a really good job to keep up with him.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, I think I wonder too if just this technology has made film a lot easier and made film distribution a lot easier. And I feel like, and I don't know if this is me being more mature and seeking out more complex content, but I feel like, independent movies are much more competitive than they used to be
Mm-hmm.
because they can more easily get themselves out there. They don't necessarily have to have a national distribution deal and buy 10 million pounds of film reels
Right.
to get their
Right.
movie out. And, you know, like I think about like this last year, in the last couple of years, I guess, like the movie Booksmart
Mm-hmm.
or the movie Eighth Grade or Lady Bird, which are all sort of similarly themed coming of age movies, but those are the ones that just sort of come to top of mind of like not necessarily the biggest names acting. I mean, Saoirse Ronan is pretty big name, but you know, Booksmart was relatively less known actors, and Eighth Grade, was nobody famous, and but those movies were just really, really well done and really well constructed and complex and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had come out when I was that age, I don't know if I would have. I know for sure I would have never seen them. I wouldn't have been exposed to them. I wouldn't have had access to them.
Right. Wouldn't have. Well, that's one of the cool things about so many mediums is there are more filmmakers that can get their stuff out there. I mean, on Netflix and Amazon.
Right.
Not trying to promote anything here, but
but I think
there are
that
so many independent movies and foreign independent movies and TV series.
Yeah.
That
But I think
even
that's
10
why
years ago we
you
wouldn't have
can't
seen
mail it in anymore.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Because now it's like I have so many more choices than I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I've got Netflix and Amazon, and I don't feel compelled to go to a movie theater very, very often. Sometimes I like to go.
What did I go for? Oh, there was a little indie movie about a superhero character that I did go to the theater for. It was just some offhanded comic book thing. It's barely, you probably know Joker. You remember that?
Jesus.
Not really any promotion for it.
I couldn't. I could not with that movie.
This is one of these films. I would not recommend it to people. I mean, it's bizarre. But
people really loved it. They said it was really good and
it was
important.
Genius.
And
I don't know that it was important.
I might watch it at home someday.
I disagree with a lot of what people said about it. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine. Yeah, a lot of that stuff was, well, my only real disagreement was it was a brilliant film, brilliant performance. My only problem with it is that it was called Joker. Because it wasn't, it wasn't really about that character. It was about something else. And it was a brilliant way to do this.
Yeah.
It was more than a departure. It wasn't about the Joker. About a different character, but it was a very interesting way to get across a message. And it was definitely a message film and a one of.
Yeah, that's what I heard
It's
too.
always nice to have a one of in that universe as well. Interesting thing about the superhero shows, somehow I went down a YouTube rabbit hole recently and I saw the guy, the actor who plays Loki. He's probably Tom Hiddleston. Maybe the best actor in those series.
It's pretty great.
When he auditioned, blows my mind to think about it now, and most kids don't even know this. When he auditioned, they were looking for unknowns.
Yeah.
No one knew what this universe was, and they were trying to create it with unknown actors. So if you look back, you're like, oh yeah, those guys, no one knew who those people were.
Yeah.
They had done a few movies. Some of them were sort of names, but not really.
Well, other than Robert Downey Jr., who was, and I would say Mark Ruffalo, like people knew who he was, and
but he came in later. I mean, after the.
But even Hemsworth really hadn't done much before Thor.
Hemsworth was the interesting thing was Tom Hiddleston tried out for Thor. That's who I auditioned for, and
he's so small though.
Well, What's his name wasn't huge either. He was skinny.
Oh.
He became Thor.
Oh man.
He would, and I've seen him in films. He did some films in between where he dropped that muscle, and he looks a lot different. Yeah, they work hard to look like that.
I'm trying to think of what else I've seen him in. I know I've seen him in stuff,
but yeah, thankfully they saw how good he would be as Thor's brother.
I had, the thing that really killed it for me with the Marvel movies was Thor. Mm-hmm. I had a really tough time with Natalie Portman's character. I
had a tough time with imagining that director doing that.
Who directed it?
That's directed by...
Was it Whedon?
No, it's directed by the guy who did all the Shakespeare.
Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth freaking Branagh directed Thor. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It still blows my mind.
Which to me, I thought,
some of the sequels. I don't know.
Makes sense that the leading lady was some subservient, caving. I'm like, never mind the fact that she's a brilliant top world scientist.
It didn't play that way.
It was as soon as Muscles shows up, she turns into this little girly puddle of goo. And I was so irritated by that. I just was like, you know what, Marvel?
Oh, geez.
You're dead to me.
It was a very Shakespearean movie,
it's just
too.
all that guy knows how to do.
But I mean, it's about, a father with two sons. One's good, one's... It's very Shakespeare.
That must have been, the producers must have just been sitting around in a room and being like, this is kind of Shakespearean. Let's call that Kenneth Branagh guy.
Yeah, that Kenneth guy.
It's going to be great.
I'm not surprised that they would call him. I'm surprised he would go, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Money.
I've always wanted to do that.
I've always wanted to make millions of dollars.
I always wanted to make millions.
Not a lot of money in Shakespeare.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not as much.
The last movie I saw in theaters was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, see, I want to see that. And there was 4 movies at the same time that came out, because that came out not very long before Joker.
Yeah.
And I decided it's I'd like to see that in the theaters too. Absolutely. It's probably too late now, but did you like that?
I did, and I really didn't want to.
You didn't want to.
I've had that. I find Tarantino a really gross person. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure
totally understand that, especially as a woman.
Right. It's just and, his movies don't really, and I didn't think this movie was an exception. His movies don't really consider the feminine perspective very much, and they're incredibly violent. And I will say there's some of his, Inglourious Basterds is probably one of my favorite movies.
Oh, interesting.
Mostly because Christoph Waltz is a genius. Mm-hmm. And the casting, I mean, Brad Pitt in that movie is hilarious. And I love seeing Brad Pitt in more comedic roles because he really does have the chops. And I think people just think of him as, eye candy.
Well, he's taken a lot of those roles.
But he has, I know, but I still feel like it was hard for him to sort of break out of the 90s Brad Pitt image and the whole drama with him and Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie. And obviously, he did the Ocean's movies, which are sort of that same
comic timing. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a comedy.
It is a comedy. You're right.
That's a comedy.
But that's not what people went to go see it for.
I don't know what in the world you're talking about.
Really?
I didn't go see it.
I thought to go see that movie because it was sexy.
Yeah, I thought it sounded terrible because
it was terrible.
It sounded terrible. I
went to see it
because
in
I expected it to be terrible.
Bad.
See, because I expected terrible, it ends up being better than I thought, but largely because of the co-stars.
Yeah, so it's not like I hate Tarantino's movies. I love Kill Bill. I think those movies are great. That is the one exception, I guess, where he does consider more. It is a more female-driven movie.
That's a feminist-driven movie. And that movie, when I saw Kill Bill, I was so unimpressed. When I watched Kill Bill 2, which I don't know why I did, I was like, why am I watching this? And I got to the end
you didn't like Kill Bill.
I didn't really like it, but I got to the end of Kill Bill 2, and I went, oh my God, this whole thing is genius.
And what's weird for me
I had to see the whole arc.
Yeah.
And then I realized,
you have to see the whole thing to really appreciate
that's amazing.
it. And I will say, I like the first movie better. I just find it more entertaining. Mm-hmm. Because the second movie is just basically her and Michael Madsen and Daryl Hannah in a trailer for an hour and a half. And it's great, but it's also like, oh,
but you also get the scene with, you finally get the scene with Bill.
But yeah, the ending, obviously, you need them, you need the whole thing together. But I also think, could he have taken both movies and cut it down to 2 hours? Yeah, probably.
That's the only thing that bothers me about modern day action movies. And I blanket them all. I even include Joker in this. If you can't edit that story down to 2 hours, what are you doing? What are you doing? And
he's being Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. But it's not just him. Now it's everyone.
But the Hollywood movie was no exception. There were scenes in that movie that felt like they were an hour long.
Oh, okay.
It is a very long movie. It's almost 3 hours, or it's over 3 hours. I think
it's over 3. Wow, it's long.
Don't quote me on that, but it's either close to or over 3 hours, and it doesn't really come together until the very end. Like 2 hours in, you're like, I don't hate this, but I'm not really seeing where it's going at this point. Like. Like Leonardo DiCaprio's over here doing this thing. Brad Pitt's over here with like a bunch of Manson family.
Hey, don't give it away. I haven't seen it.
I'm not giving it away.
I'm just kidding.
Know that it is. It's not a spoiler.
Know all about it.
He's like out on this ranch, where they were all camped out, and then there's like, and then what's her face?
I don't know.
Margot Robbie.
Oh, okay.
Margot Robbie's over like.
Oh, right.
Doing,
right. I forgot
like,
she was in it.
Doing a go-go type scenes of. There's a lot of scenes of her not talking and just like walking through town, and there's music playing, and you're like, what is this?
It's for. I know what it is.
Well,
it's a Hollywood thing.
She's great, but it didn't do it for me. Let's say that. But it was, so there were just like a lot of like really, and so it was like, okay, is this Tarantino's like commentary on 1960s Hollywood? Is it Marilyn, is it the story of Charles Manson? Is it about Leonardo DiCaprio? It's not even really about him. He's in a large part of the movie, but it's like he's his own subplot that's like way over here.
Wow.
But I will say, I still would say I enjoyed the movie. And if for no other reason than a incredibly brilliant flashback scene about Brad Pitt's character that ends with the most like delicious like reconciliation reaction. Like the flashback ends and it goes back to Brad Pitt and he just sort of you don't have to see the movie, but it's this like incredibly subtle like little reaction that he has at the end of it that just makes the whole thing like so good. And he's very funny, but I will say one, he's aged very well. He's very handsome.
Who?
In this movie. Brad Pitt? Yeah.
Huh.
You can tell he's older.
Huh.
But like sit him next to Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think is even younger than he is. But
he probably is. I'm just
Leo has not aged well.
I know, I can see in the pictures. I was always like, that was weird casting.
They look.
I mean, I like the idea.
They do not look the same.
Because a lot of times a stunt guy will be better looking, but
lots better looking.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I will say about
it started out that way. Come on.
Sure.
There was never a time when anyone looked better than Brad Pitt.
I think still nobody does.
Not really.
No.
He's one of those freaks. He's a freak.
Yeah.
That is a freak of nature when people look that good.
Yeah, I agree.
That's not the norm. That's the
not.
freaks.
No, most people age.
Most people age. And
it's like he has aged, but he's just aged well, like a nice wine. But what I was going to say about it was like his performance in that movie really satisfied me. And because there's something, he doesn't say a lot. He doesn't say much. He doesn't have a lot of lines, but he says a lot with his face and his body and his just sort of expression. And I really, really, I find that so compelling sometimes when an actor can do a lot with not very many lines.
Oh,
and
me
I think,
too.
And
Yeah.
Tom Hardy is actually another, it reminded me of Tom Hardy's performance in that movie he did with Shia LaBeouf about Prohibition. I think it's called Lawless.
Oh, I
Did you
never
see that
did
movie?
see that. I never saw that.
It's a really good movie with Jessica Chastain
Mm-hmm.
and Shia LaBeouf, who's okay.
I never knew that's how you pronounce his last name. I've always
It may
wanted
not
to-
be.
Yeah.
I'm just making it up.
I think
Shia LaBeouf.
sounds good to
Sheila
me.
Brioche. Sheila Brioche.
Brioche.
Brioche. Bouche de Noël.
Oh no. Yes. Well, I have to go on a little Tom Hardy tangent because I think
Yeah.
he's unbelievably brilliant.
Tom Hardy's so
He
much.
changes his look so much that you don't recognize him, which
Yeah.
tells me he doesn't really have an ego like a lot of people. And
No.
he has been in more than one movie where he doesn't say a word. He was in the movie about the soldiers being rescued off the beach, and I'm totally forgetting the name now. An unbelievably good movie. War movies get really old, but this is
Yeah,
you
I've
cannot
sworn off.
stop
I'm off
watching.
war movies.
This is like you can't stop watching this movie.
Was it was it Dunkirk?
Dunkirk. Tom Hardy plays a pilot with his face covered the entire movie until the end.
Yeah.
He says like, I don't know, he has like 3 lines. Maybe
even,
4.
Yeah, even the
That's it.
Batman movie.
Same
he
thing.
did.
Well, he has a lot of lines, but you don't
But
know who he
he's
is.
covered his
He's
face.
completely covered his face.
But he
and
does it with his eyes
He
and
also
his-
changed his body completely. So again, hard to recognize. Oh, it's fine.
Now I just think it's a conspiracy. Your microphone's just messing with me.
There we go. That's
Get it?
Okay, sorry folks, adjusting microphones again. Perhaps I'll edit it.
I was trying to be cool. Did not bring it up.
Oh, that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do as the audio engineer, producer, chief bottle washer, janitor,
Host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, wow, that was quite a discussion on the movie.
Quite a trip. I love movies. I'll
I
talk
do
about
too.
movies all day.
Yeah, I do too. Love movies. Watch a lot of them. And now I'm really impressed with a lot of series that are as good as
Yes.
movies. I just started watching the new season of, oh man, I'm totally blanking it. Mr. Robot. Have you seen Mr. Robot?
I watched the first 2 episodes of Mr. Robot and then I got sidetracked. But I do like it. I really love that actor,
Rami Malek.
Malek.
Brilliant actor.
I did was I
yeah.
saw Bohemian Rhapsody.
That is another really good movie.
I liked it a lot.
I
know
loved
there
it.
was a lot of
I heard
discussion about
yeah,
it.
I heard some stuff about it.
But
I was like,
I thought
what are you
it was-
talking about?
I
It's
did not-
amazing.
I did not see what people were saying. I thought that it was anyway, I thought it was a really good movie. And so then I was like, and then he was on Fresh Air and I just really liked I love actors that will come onto shows and really talk about the craft of acting and just really talk about their career and so he just seemed really interesting and they talked about Mr. Robot a lot on that interview with Terry Gross.
I think I heard that
and
interview.
So I started watching it
Uh-huh.
and then I don't know, I fell off of it somehow.
I know how this happens. I mean, I know how this happens.
Yeah.
Things get in the way. Terry Gross is such a good interviewer. And
She's
yeah,
great.
he seems like someone who's very, very into his craft. And
Yeah,
it
he takes it
shows
really
in his performances.
seriously.
Yeah. And he's nothing like his characters. I mean, when
No,
you just hear him
he's
talking,
a
he's
very,
really
like,
not like his characters at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great. He's also a voice on BoJack Horseman, which I like.
Oh,
too.
right. Now that I need to check out. I've heard
You
really-
never watched it?
No, I
Oh my
haven't
God.
seen that. I've heard great
That
stuff
is-
about it.
Definitely top 5 favorite show ever.
Wow.
It-
Wow.
That show, it'll mess you up.
hmm
Because you think, because it's animated and because it is a comedy, it's very funny.
hmm
But there are moments that will just break your heart. It's so poignant and it's so vulnerable. And there are real serious, big life things that it deals with. And in some ways, it reminds me of Mad Men because he's almost kind of a Don Draper, the main Bojack, is this sort of, he's handsome and he gets women and he drinks all the time. And, he's this kind of hotshot. He's a has-been actor, so he's not totally Don Draper, but he just like his psyche kind of reminds me of that character a lot. And, but it just, and at first you just think like, oh, haha, he's an asshole. And then it slowly unravels and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper every episode and every season. And there are a couple of episodes in particular in, I think, the third season, or maybe I think they're in 5 seasons now. So it could, third and fourth season. One is, there's a whole episode that's centered around his mother having dementia. And the whole thing's from her perspective.
Wow.
And the reality is being morphed in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they do it, I think, is such a genius way to represent dementia. Not that I've ever had dementia, so I don't know, but I have had, grandparents with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And just everything I've read about it just seems like it's just this thing where like you're so frustrated because you don't know.
It's got to be incredible. My mom had Alzheimer's, and so I have a hard time watching things about it.
It's just that one
good.
episode, but it is.
There's a lot of things with Alzheimer's. It's like, whatever. That's not Alzheimer's.
Right. So
but sometimes you see things that are like that are like they're getting to the point of what it might be like, and it's really hard for me to watch.
It's a very brave show. I will say that's only probably 2 episodes that it deals with it in 5 seasons, but. And he has a very troubled relationship with his parents, and it just gets really deep, and it speaks to me on a very deep level, but then is also somehow very hilarious.
Well,
so,
that's
it's a great
that's
show.
good comedy, though, right?
It's so good.
That's that's the point of good comedy.
I can't push that show hard enough. Not enough people watch it.
Oh, I thought it was a really popular show.
It is, but I just feel like a lot of people don't want to talk about it endlessly with me the way that I want to talk about it because it's just so good. I'm really into Watchmen right now. That's my
my gosh, that's so bizarre because I was going to. Oh no, not Watchmen. Watchmen I can't watch because we don't have HBO, but we got a free trial. So I made the mistake of watching a couple episodes, and I'm so bummed that I don't have
to come over and watch it.
It's amazing,
yeah. So good.
Yeah,
it is
have a watch
so
party
good.
Or something. It's
amazing. What was so great
it's
is
amazing.
That, my husband, who is like a very good person, a very caring person, but not somebody who really pays attention to like the sort of social justice aspects of the world. And, I'm always like talking about like, we have to be better allies and blah, 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 and feminism and smash the patriarchy. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, sure. Yes. Go.
Wow. That's surprising.
Not in a, he agrees with me. He just doesn't have the same zeal that I do. Let's say that. And we were watching that the other night, and he turns to me and he goes, "You know what makes this show so good?" I was like, "What?" And he goes, "They gave the black characters just as much complexity and strength as the white characters." And I was like, "Yeah."
Way to go. Way to get that.
You get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, get on that social equity train.
They're doing a good job. I mean, I have to say, it's a little preachy, but they're doing a really good job of showing this is what can happen in society. This is why
I think
you need to look out for what's going on, because this is where it can go. This is where it can go.
Chose white supremacists as the villains for that show. Yeah.
Well, it's like the oh shoot! What's the one with the red? Everyone's in red. It's on Hulu.
The
Handmaid's Tale. Mm-hmm. I can't watch that.
I can't watch it either.
It's too real. And when I started watching it, all this stuff was actually happening. Like the first couple episodes was happening. Those things were really happening, and I went, okay, I really can't watch this. It's too creepy. I think it's a really good show, but it was like, this is I just can't go there every hour, for an hour a
What's
day.
really interesting about that is that Margaret Atwood wrote that book a long time ago.
Right.
Decades ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
she still
Pretty amazing.
saw the world going
She saw
that
it come.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like my dad's politics. The stuff he screamed about is still today. He would be a huge Bernie supporter, I imagine, if he was alive.
In other countries, it never stopped.
Yeah.
It's still,
It's true.
there's still a lot of countries where women don't have any freedom and they're more or less treated as baby vessels.
Yes, hundreds of countries.
Yeah.
It's something we forget in America, and even in, I think, the Western world, it tends to be kind of pushed aside, kind of buried.
And it's so arrogant of us to say, like, oh, that can't happen. And it's like, it's happening.
It's happening, yeah.
Like, go
it's real.
somewhere else.
You're right.
Go to literally any other part of the world.
It can happen lots of places. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of our allies treat their women that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
But, oil is good.
Oil's good. Oil and sugar. That's all we need. Man, we've been going on a while. I think we've...
I know. I'm sorry. I think we've had 2 or 3 episodes at this point.
No, this is... Great thing about podcasts.
It can be as long as you
want.
They're
long form. Once we start talking about TV and movies, no one will turn it off.
Right, I know, because that is totally what people want to hear is what I watch on TV.
Believe it or not. Wow, we have been going on a little while. So I'm gonna wrap it up.
I just enjoy talking to you so much.
Well, that's
Joel.
wonderful. We'll have you back on episode 34.
34.
Episode 34. Hope I see you here.
All right.
It'll definitely, yeah.
I think we should multiply it by 6. There could be 4, 24. I come back at 100 and...
I was trying to do the math there.
60.
I was just getting to if the show is still going. So be sure you share it with all your friends so that I'm encouraged to keep on podcasting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming back in. This has been really fun.
It's my pleasure.
I am really enjoying podcasting. You have been listening to... Were you still talking?
I am, apparently.
This is Joel Albrecht, and I've had Callie Kardas in the studio with me. Thanks for listening in. If you are still listening this far, you must love it. Tell your friends. And be good to each other.
Share. Hit the share button right now.
Right now.